Imagine calling someone the ugliest person you have ever met, thinking nothing of it. Now imagine seeing that same person at a luxurious pool party. Everything you thought you knew suddenly shatters. He walked into the party with confidence, certain that his sharp words had no consequences. The music pulsed. Glasses clinked. The city lights shimmered across the pool. And then he saw her. The assistant he had mocked, laughed at, dismissed. Now, moved with a grace he could not ignore. Her hair sparkled in the sunlight. Her presence commanded attention, and suddenly every cruel word he had ever spoken came back to him. Magnified, echoing, unbearable. The whispers of the crowd, the glances, even the reflection in the water, they all reminded him of one terrifying truth. He had underestimated her as she smiled. He realized something impossible. This was not the woman he thought he knew. Her confidence, her elegance. Even the water seemed to bend around her presence. And in that moment, he felt powerless, exposed, trapped in a reality he could not control. What happens when someone you underestimate turns out to be unstoppable? Stay with me, because the moment he faced her at the pool is more shocking than anything you can imagine. By the end of this story, you will see why calling her ugly was the biggest mistake of his life. Asterisk, he always thought of himself as clever. He thought he could read people like open books. His assistant, Mara, often bore the brunt of his sharp tongue. Today, he called her ugly, laughing at what he believed was harmless teasing. Her lips tightened. Her eyes lowered, and he smirked. Later that evening, he attended a lavish pool party at the penthouse. Overlooking the city, the sun dipped low, casting gold and pink streaks across the water. Music pulsed in the background, a rhythm that made the air vibrate. The scent of expensive perfume mingled with chlorine and warm summer grass. People laughed. Glasses clinked, and the party seemed perfect. He sipped his drink, scanning the crowd with a self-satisfied grin. Then, Mara. She walked across the deck with a confidence he had never noticed before. The sunlight caught her hair, turning it into a halo of glimmering copper. Her swimsuit was simple but elegant, highlighting a poise that made heads turn. She laughed lightly, a sound that seemed to weave through the music and crowd alike. His stomach twisted, a cold knot forming as he realized the eyes that admired her were not just polite glances. They were drawn, curious, captivated. He moved closer, heart pounding, noticing how people parted slightly, given her space. Her smile met his, and in that moment, saw her not as the assistant he mocked but as a force he had underestimated. The confidence she radiated made his own arrogance feel small. Fragile, a wave of unease crept over him. Each step she took toward the poolside reflecting in the water like a mirror of his past dismissals. He could feel the heat of embarrassment. But it burned differently than anger. It was sharp, humiliating. Almost physical, people whispered. Glances flicked toward him, as if sensing his sudden vulnerability. She paused near the edge of the pool, the water sparkling like liquid diamonds. Then, without warning, she dove in. The splash echoed, breaking the rhythm of the music. He blinked, heart racing, trying to comprehend how this person, this assistant, could seem untouchable. She surfaced, laughing, dripping with water, radiant and untamed. Time seemed to slow as he realized he had misjudged everything. The laughter, the confidence, the presence, it all belonged to someone entirely different from the quiet, awkward woman he thought he knew. Shock rooted him in place. Discomfort clawed at his chest. He felt small, powerless for the first time. Words failed him. He could only watch as she moved gracefully through the crowd, a queen among subjects. While he wrestled with the image of everything he had dismissed, he tried to look away, but his eyes betrayed him. Every movement she made seemed deliberate, effortless. Impossible to ignore, the laughter she shared with others echoed in his ears like a mocking symphony. A knot twisted tighter in his stomach. His palms, all clammy. His drink trembled in his hand. He realized people were noticing him, noticing her. The whispers grew louder in his mind than in the room. He felt exposed. Like a boy caught stealing from a window he thought was hidden, She swam to the edge of the pool and climbed out with the same elegance that had trapped his gaze. Droplets of water slid down her skin, catching the light like tiny sparks. He could feel every eye in the vicinity following her, and some, he dreaded to admit, lingering on him. Panic edged in. Sharp and unrelenting, he took a step back, bumping into a waiter carrying a tray. Glasses wobbled. Someone laughed softly. He wanted to vanish. He wanted to scream. She turned toward him, eyes glinting with awareness. Not hostility, not even recognition, but a calm, quiet power that seemed to pierce through the layers of his arrogance. He stumbled backward toward the balcony. Railing, the city lights below shimmered, beautiful but distant, like a world he no longer controlled. Every memory of his cruel words, every sneer he had delivered toward her, turned to him with magnified clarity. It was unbearable. A buzzing in his ears drowned the music, the laughter, splashing water, the clinking glasses all became distant. Unreal. He realized he had underestimated her. In every way, the woman he mocked was no longer the assistant he thought he knew. She was an enigma, force of nature, and he was powerless. He gripped the railing, knuckles white. As the crowd seemed to blur around him, his mind raced, chaotic, spiraling into disbelief. He had expected menace. He had expected obedience instead. He faced a presence so magnetic, so undeniable, that he felt himself unravel. She smiled again, casually, lightly, and it was enough to shatter him completely. A single step closer, and he realized he no longer recognized the person he had thought he was. Everything he believed about control, about appearances, about power, slipped through his fingers like water. The world around him tilted, and he knew in that instant that he had lost not just his composure, but his mind. Asterisk, the music seemed to warp, stretching and twisting in his ears. The laughter around the pool became distorted, like a distant storm. He could feel his pulse hammering, every heartbeat echoing in his skull. Mara moved closer to the pool bar, her every gesture, deliberate, fluid, mesmerizing. He realized he could no longer distinguish between what he saw and what he imagined. Her eyes met his again, steady, unyielding, and something in that gaze pierced him deeper than any insult or rejection ever could. The crowd melted away, leaving only her and the unbearable awareness of himself. He stumbled backward, nearly colliding with a decorative fountain. The water splashed over his shoes. Cold and shocking, his reflection rippled in the fountain, distorted, fragmented, unrecognizable. He could not escape the image of her, every movement. Every glimmer of sunlight on her wet skin burned into his mind. His breathing grew shallow, sharp. Erratic voices whispered from the crowd, but they were words he could not comprehend. He felt trapped in a spotlight he never asked for. The city lights flickered below, dizzying, unreal. A sudden wave of nausea surged through him. He clutched the railing with both hands, knuckles cracking under the pressure. Her laughter floated across the pool, clear, taunting, intimate, though she did not speak to him. Something in him snapped. The world tilted violently, the railing leaning away, the water below a chasm he could almost feel. He saw her moving through the crowd, graceful and untouchable, and in that moment he understood nothing he had ever known power. Control, mockery, judgment meant anything here. She existed in a reality he could not enter, could not touch, could not contain. His vision blurred. The edges of the pool, the lights, faces all melting into a surreal haze. A scream rose from his throat, sharp and raw, but it was swallowed by the music, by the splashing water, by the unstoppable presence of Mara. He staggered backward, heart hammering, mind fracturing, every sense consumed by disbelief. For the first time in his life, he was utterly exposed, vulnerable, powerless, and yet he could not look away. She was everywhere and nowhere. It's impossible, inevitable. And he knew he would never recover from the image seared into his mind. The pool shimmered under the evening sky, beautiful and deadly, and he realized he had lost not just his mind, but his very sense of self. He swayed on the edge of the balcony, heart pounding, mind spiraling. The crowd's laughter had vanished. The music had faded to a distant hum. Only the sound of water lapping at the pool echoed in his ears. Mara turned slowly, her eyes locking. With his, they glimmered, almost unreal, reflecting the city lights like molten gold. A faint smile curved her lips when he could not read. She took a step toward him, yet he could not move. The air seemed thicker, warmer, almost suffocating, eh? Shiver ran down his spine. Then he noticed something impossible. Her reflection in the pool did not match her movements. It lingered behind, rippling unnaturally, twisting in ways no human form could. She raised a hand, and the reflection did not follow. It moved on its own, curling, stretching, warping, as if alive. His breath caught. Cold and shallow. The laughter he thought he had heard returned, but it was not hers. It came from the water. Deep and hollow, mocking, knowing. He stumbled back further, eyes wide. Mind screaming, the city lights blurred, the balcony seemed endless. The pool bottomless Mara smiled again, serene, untouchable. While the reflection writhed and twisted beneath her, he wanted to speak, he wanted to run, but no words came. His body froze, the pool shimmered, like a mirror to another world, and in that moment, he understood. He had never really known her. He had never truly known reality. The assistant he called ugly was something else entirely, something beyond comprehension, something that had been waiting, silent, patient until now. He fell backward, not just off the balcony, but into a terror he could not name, a darkness that swallowed sound and light alike. The last thing he saw before the world went black was Mara's calm smile, still watching, still perfect, still impossible, and the water rippled, reflecting a reality he could no longer reach, truth he could never unsee. He had called her ugly, and he had lost everything. Asterisk hours passed, but he did not wake. The party faded, the crowd dispersed, and the city lights dimmed with the night. Yet in his mind, she remained Mara. Her image burned brighter than any memory. It's more vivid than reality. He could see her moving through the party again, smiling, laughing, untouchable. Every whispered word of mockery he had spoken to her replayed, amplified, echoing. In his skull, he tried to speak, to apologize, but his voice was gone. The room felt smaller now, walls closing, shadows stretching unnaturally. The pool outside shimmered in the moonlight, each ripple a reflection of her, yet warped and alien. A faint splash sounded from nowhere. He froze. The sound echoed in his mind. Louder, sharper, as if calling him. He wanted to look away. He wanted to forget, but he could not. Something had. The assistant he mocked was no longer a person in any sense he understood. She was something else, something patient, something watching, something waiting, and he knew deep in the marrow of his bones that this encounter was not over, not in the pool, not in the reflections, not in his mind. He had glimpsed her truth, and that truth would not let him go. Even as he tried to close his eyes, the shimmer of her image haunted the corners of his vision. A faint smile, calm, untouchable, impossible. He had called her ugly, and now he was forever trapped in the shadow of her presence. He realized the terrifying weight of it. Some things cannot be unseen. Some forces cannot be mocked, and some people are not who they appear to be. The night stretched on endlessly, and he understood, with a cold certainty, that he would never escape the memory of what he had seen. Mara was no longer an assistant. She had become something eternal in his mind, something he feared, something he could not confront, something he could not forget. And the pool shimmered quietly in the darkness, reflecting a world he could no longer recognize. Asterisk. He could feel her presence even when she was gone, even when the pool was empty. And the city lights flickered in the distance. The memory of her shimmered in every reflective surface. The glass of his drink, the chrome railing, the ripples of a puddle outside. It was impossible to look away, impossible to ignore. His thoughts spiraled, twisting every insult he had ever uttered into a mirror of his own cruelty. He had underestimated her. He had mocked her, and now he was trapped in the echo of that mistake. Every shadow in the room seemed to pulse with her image. Every whisper of wind carried her laughter. His heartbeat throbbed in sync with the memory of her stride, sway of her hair, the curve of her smile. He tried to move, to escape the suffocating weight of it, but the air felt thick, almost liquid. It clung to him, pulling him back, binding him to the memory. He realized then that some people leave marks that are not visible on the skin. Some presences linger far longer, stretching across time, reshaping the mind. She had become that presence, and he had no way to fight it. His reflection in the window startled him. The face staring back was pale, hollowed, unrecognizable. The arrogance he once carried was gone, replaced by fear, disbelief, and something darker. He whispered her name, and it sounded wrong. Alien. A shiver ran through him, as though the sound had awakened something. Outside, the pool reflected the moonlight, calm, beautiful, yet ominous, and he knew he would never see the world the same way again. Mara was not just a person he had misjudged. She had become a force he could not comprehend, a truth he could not escape, a presence that would haunt him forever. And in the quiet, in the stillness of the night, he realized he had called her ugly, and in doing so, he had invited something far more terrifying into his life, something that would not forgive, something that would not forget, something that would never let him go. Dawn broke over the city, soft and pale, washing the pool in silver light. The party was over. The crowd had vanished. He was alone. The silence pressed against him, heavy, unyielding. For a long moment he simply stared at the pool. The water shimmered, calm and inviting, yet somehow impossible to approach. Then he saw it, a faint ripple, as if something beneath the surface had moved. His reflection stared back, but it was no longer his own face. The arrogance, the cruelty, the certainty, they had all vanished, leaving only a hollow shell of a man who had glimpsed something beyond comprehension. He realized finally that Mara had never truly been the person he judged. She had always been something greater, a force of presence, of confidence, of quiet power that no words could touch. And he understood that his insult never mattered to her. What mattered was that he had seen her truth, and that truth would remain with him forever. He turned from the pool and walked away, the morning light soft against his skin, yet unable to erase the image that haunted him. He had called her ugly, and in that moment, he had learned what it meant to be utterly powerless. The city awoke around him, indifferent, unaware, while he carried a memory that would never fade. Mara had left the pool. She had left the party, but she had not left him, and he knew, with a quiet, terrible certainty, that she never would.